Alright, so sorry I'm out of breath. I had to go find my scissors so I can open up what we have today, which is.
So on Tuesday, the search for missing Kassanndra Cantrell came to a tragic end when it was confirmed by the Pierce County Sheriff's Department that they had found her body. They had conducted a detailed ground search near Chambers Creek Road West, which is in University Place in Washington. And at about 2 p.m., detectives confirmed that they had found Cassandra's body wrapped and she'd been disposed of over a steep wooded hillside along the road, along Chambers Creek Road. A short time after that, a SWAT team went in to her ex-boyfriend's home. 37-year-old Colin Patrick Dudley. SWAT team went in and arrested him at his Tacoma home. I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to a lot of people because he was always suspect number one due to his relationship and history with Cassandra and his behaviour since her disappearance when he kind of disappeared. He also has a long-time living girlfriend. She was also taking him for questioning, but as far as I know, she was not arrested. I haven't heard any further with regards to that. It looks like the early reports of the arrest and the details of the investigation, it looks like he clearly tried to play down his relationship with Cassandra, that he hadn't seen her in years, and that he was only interested in his current relationship. But they've got a whole stack of digital evidence against this guy. It was back in 2006 that Colin and Cassandra last dated, and they've kind of remained friends ever since. And she had actually confided in her close friends and family that he was actually the father of her baby. It was an encounter they had back in May, I believe it was. She was over the moon about. She'd picked out names. She planned a baby shower with a best friend. She was a nanny, and she always wanted children of her own. But her ex-boyfriend, she was always hesitant to tell him because he didn't want children. He always said he didn't want children. Something always stuck with her that he said to her back when they were dating. He said if any girlfriend of his got pregnant and wouldn't get an abortion, he would sue to get full custody just to spite the mother for having the child. So she always had that comment, what he said, sort of hanging over her head. And it looks like from the details of the investigation that Cassandra did indeed leave that morning and go and visit Colin at his home, which is what her family suspected. They suspected that she went to tell him about the pregnancy, tell him about the ultrasound that was due the next day. Of course, she also had documents and proof of her pregnancy she took with her, as I understand. And we know that she from her mother, that she'd took time, made herself look nice and to go and meet him. And all this time, effort she'd done to do that, it looks like that whole time he'd been plotting and planning her murder and the murder of her baby. One of the key pieces of information or parts of the investigation was when they found her vehicle near the Tacoma Dome train station with the key still inside and with other information that they had. That was one of the key points of the investigation when they really started to question Colin. And as I say, he tried to play down their relationship, but they knew other people had come forward and said that him and Cassandra had been maintaining a friendly relationship. And from her phone records, they knew that they had been, seeing each other consistently for the past few years. So as I say, looking sort of early reports of the investigation, it looks like they've used his truck GPS data from his phone and Cassandra's phone, and various pieces of camera footage. He claimed that morning on the 25th that he had a day off work and he set off to go and get some gas from a Costco business, and when he got home he returned home to do some spring cleaning, which of course was always a red flag in any missing person investigation. They then caught him taking his truck to the Tacoma Dome station that morning, leaving the truck there. This was caught on camera. He took a bike out of it and left on the bicycle. They then, sort of around the time just after that Cassandra left her house, which we know her because her neighbour had it on camera, at 8:35 that morning, around 8:50, the data from the phones points or places Cassandra's phone and Colin's phone at his house. So as I say, it looks pretty clear that that's where she went that morning. He placed a call. Colin placed a call slightly later on to ADT, of course, the home alarm security system. He texted his wife saying that the cameras were down, not to worry, it was his doing. And at that point, his phone went off. His phone was shut off. But Cassandra's was left on, and I think this may be where he slipped up in his plan, because he left Cassandra's phone on, and they managed to track that phone leaving his home, and it travelled to the train station area where Cassandra's vehicle was found, and that ties in with camera footage that they have of somebody fitting Colin's description wearing latex gloves, parking up and leaving her vehicle. Shortly after that, he's then caught on camera at the station leaving in his truck, and Cassandra's phone also leaves with him. So it sounds like pretty damning evidence. They found her phone, divers found her phone. It was on the ocean floor off of Owen Beach in Point Defiance Park, which is where they suspected, and that was the area of the last ping. They then have 45 minutes later, they've got his phone's back at home. He texts his wife telling the cameras are back on, and he then texts his employer and asks about sealant, and he said that he's done some work in his basement. Crucially, weeks later after this interrogation, the FBI found blood in areas of his basement and his truck. They also discovered that the following day, on the 26th of August, he'd gone to his work, his employer, and dumped some trash in their dumpster. And with other phone data, they knew that he had been in touch with Cassandra several times a month for the last year. So they knew he was lying about that. And then ultimately they used his truck GPS to locate Cassandra's body. They knew the whereabouts of his truck, where he'd been. So Colin Dudley has appeared in court. Prosecutors asked for 72 more hours to file charges. He was held without bail, no problem, and he's going to be arraigned tomorrow, and he will be, I'm sure, formally charged with Cassandra's murder. Also, there were a lot of volunteers from the search for Cassandra showed up at the courtroom in solidarity with Cassandra, and they feel very strongly that she should also be charged with the murder of her unborn baby. She was 3 months pregnant, and so why should the life of that baby not count? I know that Cassandra's mother and family skipped the hearing. They're just trying to process all of this, information that's coming in, what's happened. I understand they're just completely inconsolable as to what's happened. But as I say, Colin will be arraigned tomorrow I'm sure that the information from the arrest warrants and the affidavits and what have you, I'm sure they'll be coming out pretty soon, so it will give us a more of a detailed idea of just how they caught Colin and how he tried to plan the murder of his child's mother and his unborn child.